kadang-kadang karena ada satu approach yang diagungkan as the right way or the best practice, kadang-kadang kita mikir bahwa kalau nggak gitu nggak bisa. Padahal sebenarnya there are always other ways, right?
Yeah, there are always ways sih. When you want something gitu, just kayak stick to the end goal, let go of the path to get there.
Welcome to Follow Your Flow Podcast. Kita membantu lifelong learner untuk berproses menuju life model yang lebih optimal dan sustainable. Di sini, kita akan belajar dari banyak sumber, mulai dari lifelong learner yang kita interview, sampai insight yang gue dan Mbak Ika dapat dari buku, artikel, podcast, maupun hasil refleksi pribadi kami. Di akhir setiap episode, lo akan mendapatkan science-backed, pragmatic step yang bisa membantu lo untuk mentransformasi hidup lo. Hope you enjoy this episode.
Halo teman-teman, welcome to Follow Your Flow Podcast. Hari ini gue mau memperkenalkan guest gue. Guest gue adalah Rifan Dito, atau biasa dipanggil Dito. Nah, Dito ini memulai karirnya sebagai manajemen konsultan di McKinsey & Company. Lalu dia itu pindah ke mataharimall.com dan akhirnya kuliah MBA di Stanford Graduate School of Business. Nah, setahu gue dia itu lulusan Indonesia pertama yang bisa kuliah di sana. Kalau gue kurang tepat nanti lo kasih tahu gue ya. Nah, setelah lulus dia itu kerja di Care.com, sebuah startup di Amerika, sebagai Growth Product Manager. Nah, sambil kerja di sana, Dito membangun startup yang bernama Sirka. Ini adalah pelopor digital wellness coach di Indonesia. Recently, Sirka ini baru keterima di Y Combinator. Itu adalah sebuah startup accelerator yang dulu juga pernah menerima world-class company, seperti Dropbox, Airbnb, DoorDash, Coinbase, dan juga Stripe. Gue kenal Dito udah sekitar 6 tahun yang lalu, karena waktu itu kita berada di sebuah komunitas yang sama, yaitu Young Leaders for Indonesia. Dan terakhir 2 tahun yang lalu itu gue ketemu Dito waktu kita sama-sama lagi ada kerjaan di Singapura. Kita makan di restoran Korea, lalu kita nongkrong di Hawker sampai tutup ya, tengah malam. So Dito, I'm super excited to chat with you after a while.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. It's been a while since we talked with each other. Jadi I'm super excited.
Asik. So let me start dengan dengan pertanyaan awal dulu kali ya. Jadi kan tadi gue sempat bilang di intro tentang lo bahwa setahu gue tuh sebelum lo belum pernah ada lulusan lokal yang berhasil diterima di Stanford GSB gitu. Nah, mungkin lo bisa share gitu ya, sebenarnya menurut lo, apa sih yang bikin lo bisa keterima di Stanford?
This is a very tricky question ya, because I think there's a lot of factors that plays in, kayak alasan kenapa akhirnya gue keterima. I think if I had to distill kayak the 3 things, itu yang pertama sih value dari kayak kandidat yang dicari di Stanford itu adalah kayak value orang yang kayak gue juga very appreciate gitu to have in a person gitu. And I think I delivered that or surface that story out well gitu di application gue ya at that time. So that's kayak reason number 1. Reason number 2, I guess at that time they haven't accepted any Indonesians at the year, and even when it was already kayak at round 2. Jadi kayak mungkin kalau take a step back, itu kayak di MBA itu ada 3 application, round pertama September, round kedua Desember, and then kayak round ketiga tuh March. And now usually top business schools tuh will kayak grab all their kayak applicants tuh from round 1, and then kayak kalau belum ada spot yang ke-fill, itu baru bakal ngambil di round 2 atau round 3. Sayangnya, Stanford cuma punya 1 kursi buat Indonesian setiap tahun. Jadi, the last step actually happens in round 1. And I applied in round 2 without knowing kayak that fact gitu loh, at the time. I guess I was very lucky ya in that sense, karena nggak ada satupun orang yang keterima gitu di round 1. Makanya round 2 masih dibuka dan nerima kayak, people untuk di-accept gitu. And at that time, gue yang kayak kepilih buat interview sama 1 orang lagi. Yeah, I guess like those are the 2 things. I feel like the last component yang bikin gue keterima di Stanford is, harusnya tadi gue bilang itu kayak alasan pertama sih, tapi this is just hygiene gitu kan. Kayak, ada qualification yang mereka cari, emang lo kayak feel bit dari experience kerja lo dan dari skor di GMAT lo.
Got it.
I think I want to double down on the last part sih, tapi I feel like in the end it's just meant to be aja sih buat gue ya. Soalnya kalau there's so many luck gitu kayak nomor 2 tadi gue bilang.
Nomor 2. Ya. I remember when you told me waktu kita ngobrol di Singapura itu ya, kayak, and I don't know if you remember this, but I remember what you said. Waktu itu lo bilang bahwa, kan I ask you juga kan, kayak how was the prep, right? And you said bahwa, oh ya udah gue nyiapin, tapi ketika gue submit, I really feel at peace. Maybe you can tell a bit about that.
I can't remember the exact words that I mentioned to you, tapi that describe my feeling when I submitted my application, because there's a lot of tensions gitu ya, especially last few days when you're trying to wrap up kayak all the kayak and stitch all the remaining things you need to do. Misalnya kayak web application gitu, kayak ada beberapa pertanyaan lagi yang mereka tanya kayak nggak mereka tanyain di resume ataupun di MBA letter lo gitu. Terus kayak juga lo lagi nunggu recommendation letter gitu kan dari orang-orang yang belum nyampe gitu di email lo. When kayak I've submitted the application, I felt at peace because at least this is all over gitu. I just now need to wait if all my effort is gonna pay me back gitu. Jadi abis itu tuh gue pergi, I went out to drinks. Like I think at that time tuh there was some people that we know. Jadi ada Putri sama Raymond waktu itu.
Got it. Waktu itu lo ngerasa lo bakal keterima gak tuh?
Pas masukin application ke Stanford. Enggak. Gue baru mulai ada perasaan gue keterima tuh pas gue interview. 3 weeks after pas gue dipanggil interview.
Oke, menarik. Karena menurut gue yang pengen gue highlight dari yang lo share ini sebenarnya adalah in reality gitu. Of course kayak sometimes kita pengen mengatribusikan sebuah pencapaian itu terhadap satu buah faktor, right? Either kayak is it skill or is it luck. Tapi tadi dari penjelasan lo aja gue nangkep bahwa kayak it's everything, right? There is an element of kayak the fitness, there is an element of like the preparation which is like the skill part, and there is also a luck part yang dimana you actually have maybe like very limited control about it. And I feel that menurut gue, I don't know, and this is my approach juga ya generally. Ujung-ujungnya gue jadi berusaha untuk tidak menggantungkan my self-worth terhadap pencapaian gue, terutama pencapaian-pencapaian seperti ini. Because that luck factor is extremely unpredictable.
That is true. I feel the same way gitu ya about these things. Dan what I do to not kayak let my self-worth gitu be attached to a single kayak rejection letter is spray and pray lah kalau gue modelnya. Jadi kayak you speak with other schools as well, you speak with other companies at that time ya, kayak gue ajak ngobrol buat maybe as a exit opportunity gitu dari gue abis Matahari Mall. Jadi kayak I don't feel stuck in with one path gitu. Application.
Got it. I think that's also very important risk/anxiety management strategy because you know that you still have other options kalaupun lo nggak ke Stanford, right?
Yeah, I think kayak having options is really one of the best mentality and best kayak approach gitu to anything in life. If you kayak hinge a single idea gitu and stick with that for life, I guess kayak lo jadi pertama gitu nggak fleksibel gitu kan. Sama kayak other things yang maybe ada di luar sana yang lo nggak tahu gitu. Yang kedua, itu jadi bikin lo tuh kayak nggak optimal juga dan because you try to fit into kayak the story that you want to be gitu kan.
Dan waktu itu tuh and actually maybe I was supposed to ask this earlier. Dulu tuh akhirnya apa ya yang bikin lo tuh mau MBA? I think you mentioned this but somehow I don't remember.
I think MBA was an exit for me yang kayak lumayan strategic sih, karena I feel like at that time tuh gue kind of know what I want to do. I want to in the end get to end up working for myself or kayak just working as like a leadership in a large organization. I still think that I have kayak both paths. Kayak I can see myself in those paths. But in either way tuh kayak MBA would help me kayak climb through legitimacy gitu, issues yang biasanya attached to young people di manajemen gitu kan. Kayak MBA for me at that time was the golden path gitu, karena after doing this I can pitch to investors to fund my startup, or I can also kayak work as a manager gitu kan in a large organization.
Berarti broadly speaking kayak lo ngelihat bahwa in the future kalau dijadikan pilihan gitu, kayak you may build your own thing atau kayak lo jadi executive leaders, right? But either way, like MBA is like a strategic investment to achieve that.
Yeah, it is a strategic investment. I see that.
Got it. Nah, speaking of that gitu, kan gue belum pernah MBA ya. Jadi kayak gue penasaran banget gitu, kayak gimana pengalaman MBA lu di Stanford. Gue udah nonton versinya Maudy Ayunda. Nah, dia cerita di YouTube. I wanna hear your version.
I think MBA in general itu ya, maybe I'll take a stab at kayak what MBA program looks like itu.
Boleh.
Versus kayak other degrees gitu kan, versus before kayak heading to the Stanford's unique experience gitu. I think kayak with MBA, what is quite different dari other degree is the teaching formula, emphasis on model of learning. Jadi formula itu kayak mereka rasanya tuh lebih centered around case studies sama experiential work gitu. Whether that's consulting work gitu kayak that you do over summer atau kayak it's at Stanford, by the way, it's like more like building your startup idea on the school with the school resources. Jadi kayak they're very centered around case studies and experiential work. And because of that gitu kan, tadi kayak the distribution of course that you track gitu as a student itu lebih gede porsinya di situ dibandingin kayak di assignment homework gitu atau attendance gitu. And because of that, it kayak trickles down to the dynamic sama the culture di MBA where it's less important for you to show up in classes. It's more important for you to create your own self-guided experience in the school ground gitu loh. And they do this kayak very systematically ya. Di Stanford itu score is non-disclosed to employer, meaning kayak no one can know your score and how you rank against other itu in the class. And that is kayak by design dan supaya lo tuh bisa lebih banyak di-encourage untuk kayak ngambil di out of class experience gitu. You still need to attend the classes ya, and the core curriculum untuk kayak bangun foundation yang kuat. Tapi ultimately to 80% of what you get of the school is got outside gitu of that class experience gitu. These are kayak yang tadi gue bilang, the experiential work gitu, the networking events, the discussions you have with the professors or kayak other kayak student community. Because of that itu kan kayak nggak structured ya bro, experience-nya kan. Rasanya sih kalau kayak ke restoran tuh lo bukan ke omakase ya gini. Kalau ini kebalikannya lo kayak ke buffet gitu. Omakase kan lo di-serve apapun dari koki dan lo mesti makan itu gitu kan.
Betul.
Bahkan kayak gue kasih lo 1000 menu nih, 1000 makanan, lo pilih aja lo mau makan, tapi kalau lo nyobain semuanya itu nggak optimal sebenarnya. Karena jadi nggak end up satisfied karena terlalu dikit lo makan semuanya. Mendingan lo kayak satu section atau 2 section, habis itu lo kayak makan assortment yang cukup di situ. That's the MBA experience ya versus other degrees. What's unique about Stanford sih, I think kayak the fact that they're just located at the heart of kayak ini kan, tech innovation gitu. There's a lot of emphasis jadi kayak in trying out like a startup experience gitu. Even in the classroom or adult classroom. Jadi the way they influence this is, as I mentioned, kayak they give you kayak all the resources buat lo tuh bisa ketemu sama startup founders yang gede-gede gitu di Silicon Valley. Biasanya mereka itu ke kelas lo jadi kayak guest lecturer gitu misalnya. Dan kan kayak satu cara gitu kan buat influence lo, inspire lo gitu buat building your own thing gitu. Karena ya yang datang buat ngomong itu juga semuanya profil kayak gitu. Habis itu apalagi ya unik ya, being a very engineering centric ini ya school gitu kan, sistem ini, jadi lo juga banyak intersect sama teknologi baru gitu loh di dalam ininya, di dalam sekolah. There's a lot of talks about revolutionary stuff gitu, kayak misalnya quantum computing, Bitcoin, crypto. I think kayak in the likes of kayak biology itu juga tentang artificial food gitu. Jadi I think that's very Stanford sih, yang kayak mungkin lo nggak experience gitu kalau lo ke kayak East Coast lo.
Ya. Soalnya my understanding juga that's actually very interesting, bahwa kayak beberapa poin yang tadi lo sebut adalah one, like the learning experience was not limited only in the classroom. Malah sebenarnya orang di-encourage untuk belajar di luar kelas, right? Terus yang kedua, I think I like the fact that you also mention kayak banyak juga guest lecture, jadi yang memberikan inspirasi gitu, bahwa kayak okay, these are the people yang beneran building startup. And the third part adalah Stanford's emphasis on engineering and technology. Yang dimana kalau gue nggak salah nangkap, and karena lo udah dulu juga pernah nyari MBA, kayak yang gue denger kalau Harvard itu lebih kayak ngomongin kayak the leadership and like the philosophical management. Terus kayak kalau Wharton is more like finance and Stanford is like the tech gitu ya.
Yeah, just one fun fact gitu ya bro, about Stanford gitu, entrepreneurship school is very booming. Among kayak universities, top universities in the world ya, Stanford tuh is the most billionaire kayak coming out of like their own and it's like by double gitu the amount of other schools minimal.
Oh, oke. Menarik. Dulu kayak pas lagi lo suka ngedengerin talks gitu. Siapa contohnya orang yang pernah deliver talks yang pernah lo ketemu gitu di Stanford?
Deliver talks yang gue pernah ketemu tuh yang kayak Rizan, mungkin lo pernah dengar tuh Tony Su ya, Tony Su-nya DoorDash.
Oke.
So, DoorDash is kayak for people who doesn't know, it's like basically GrabFood di Amerika. They were just went IPO gitu ya this year, and their market cap I think right now is more than $60 billion ya. Jadi it's maybe 1/3 of C Group gitu. Founder is someone who came out of school kayak like 6 years ago with a very similar profile to myself. Jadi yang
asik
Asian gitu ya. He's an Asian who started his career in McKinsey for a year, and then he kayak working for eBay, which is an e-commerce company. What I'm trying to emphasize is not kayak the fact that I'll also be like him gitu ya. What I'm trying to emphasize is kayak and he came up from an immigrant family gitu. Dia kayak bukan orang yang dia tuh first generation yang kayak orang tuanya migrate ke sini pas dia udah baru usia 5 tahun gitu lah. So I guess kayak even people yang kayak is very inherently disadvantaged kayak dia aja tuh bisa gitu loh kayak achieve kayak great stuff in the world. And how can you not be inspired gitu ya kayak seeing people like this just giving random talks in your school every other week gitu loh.
Just to emphasize that ya, menurut gua itu tuh nggak bisa dianggap gitu aja gitu, right? Because I think the fact that mungkin udah ada traditional kayak CEO dari kayak unicorn or kayak publicly listed company di US yang misalnya kayak white, terus kayak emang orang native dari sana, terus juga udah punya pengalaman yang kayak seperti apa, right? To find someone who you can relate to dan juga bisa create that mark, I can relate that it's very very motivating gitu. Kayak ternyata dia aja bisa gitu. It's not super impossible for me to accomplish, right?
Yeah, benar-benar. That also is something yang kayak I think reflected di season graduate Stanford GSB juga gitu. Kayak yang muda-muda itu kan belum nggak banyak ya, paling ada 4 orang gitu kan sekarang. Out of these 4 people gitu, 2 is already paving way in Indonesia's kayak tech market juga gitu kan, Belva sama Anderson.
Oke.
Ya jadi kayak if kayak Tony Su is not a good enough example because he's someone kayak working in the US market, look at kayak Belva and kayak Anderson, right? They're much better and they're way kayak out there gitu loh, making kayak a splash gitu.
And with that inspirations, obviously kayak itu kan fueling optimism gitu. Nah, tapi kan ketika lo lulus dari Stanford gitu ya, kayak yang arguably one of the best business school in the world, you went and go out of job market gitu. Nah, gimana perjalanan karir lo gitu? Seberapa gampang or even malah jadi susah banget ketika lo dapet kerjaan habis itu?
Oh yeah, I think from in my experience it was difficult, tapi there were a couple of factors that make it so. Jadi I graduated last year, 2020 class, which is the worst class ever gitu kan, because before we graduated, and kayak the job market that I want to enter is tech Bay Area and as a PM. Jadi kayak there's large companies gitu. Jadi kayak there's kayak a very strict kayak requirements that gitu. And at that time gitu kayak the way these companies hire is just in time. Jadi kayak whenever there's a role open, they just like open it. There's no selection programs gitu. So at the time gue mau apply tuh corona really just hit gitu di sini, and kayak semuanya nggak buka pintu buat opening kayak jobs. Yang waktu itu available opportunity buat gue is kayak startups, but they don't sponsor gitu for kayak H1B visas, which is required for me gitu after staying here for 2 years. So yeah, jadi kayak I had a problem kayak finding jobs for 4 months, in fact gitu,
Wow.
which very kayak uncommon gitu for an MBA, as an MBA gitu. Grad. I finally got a job gitu, tapi during kayak that time in between, not finding that job until kayak signing, I was working on like another kayak small, project in case I just can't, find any job here and I just need to return back gitu. Thought that this kayak pet project can be something that I do if I return gitu. And that's Circa.
Oh, interesting. Just to double click a bit on that. Jadi even ketika lo lagi nyari kerjaan, right, and job market was tough, lo juga sambil doing your side project, right?
Yeah. This goes back to my principle to not kayak stitch yourself to one story gitu kan.
Exactly. It's exactly something yang baru gue mau point out karena it's somehow like a consistent approach to that, right? Karena I think what most people often hear di social media or somewhere else adalah the fact that let's go all in, let's give everything, let's give the best, right? Tapi kayak a lot of research already shows that justru kayak a lot of great entrepreneurs are very very risk averse. Kayak they rarely put everything like pertama kali langsung semuanya. Tapi they are evaluating their options as they go. But of course, not many people can talk about this publicly karena it's not sexy, right? To say bahwa, actually I was playing it safe, I was doing multiple things at the same time, right? Tapi I think the goal of, me creating this podcast is to have this real conversation, right? Bahwa sebenarnya, it's not that kayak waktu itu kayak gue cuma cari kerja dan gue cuma mau cari kerja, gitu.
Yeah. I guess like I wouldn't say that approach is wrong as well gitu kan. There's,
Exactly.
a lot of billionaires and millionaires now made this from Bitcoin investment. So I kind of think that approach also works for some people, but just not for me. I guess I came from a very sparse background gitu. I had a lot of debt gitu surrounding me, even before school. I can't tell in details, tapi paying over those while living is just kayak hard. And so kayak whenever I want to make a big shot gitu, I tend to be a bit more careful karena there's a lot of repercussions gitu, not only to myself if I do it gitu.
Betul. As you rightly said, right? I think some approach work for different people. What I really appreciate from you sharing your approach adalah the fact that there is no like one approach for all situation, right? Jadi kayak, ya tergantung. Misalnya kayak tadi lo bilang bahwa situasi lo juga bukan yang kayak super udah financially everything sorted out, because you also mentioned you still have that. We don't go into details, but I think it just highlights that people have different situation, right? And justru menurut gue kadang-kadang karena ada satu approach yang diagungkan as the right way or the best practice, kadang-kadang kita mikir bahwa kalau nggak gitu nggak bisa. Padahal sebenarnya there are always other ways, right?
Yeah, there are always ways sih. When you want something gitu, just stick to the end goal, let go of the path to get there.
Exactly. And tadi lo udah sebut tentang Circa ya, and maybe I wanna hear more about it. Before that, congratulations for being accepted in YC Summer 2021. It's such like a great early accomplishment gitu for building stuff. But yeah, tell us a bit more about Circa and how you started the company.
So Circa is a Noom for Southeast Asia. Our mobile app helps customers lose weight, and we do this to fight obesity and diabetes. The way it works is that we connect people with legit dietitians that will create like a very custom plan made so that you can build habits from food. The idea started at that time because during that job searching process. But before we pursued the idea, thought about pursuing a partner first before idea, and do something that I was both passionate about. And this is a kind of like an intuitive approach gitu ya to startup building. But I did that because my primary goal was still to get a job, but I don't want to lose track of, like my interim goal, the intermediate goal to
Hmm.
create something of my own. Now, at that time gitu, I met my co-founder, DK, and we just committed kayak times gitu, kayak every week to do something together. He was a perfect co-founder for me because he was in the stage and he also cannot afford to go out from his job, but he wants to lay the ground gitu for the next few months gitu.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was just meant to be at that time. Then came COVID, a month or two after we started talking about like doing something together. We started to talk about wellness and just found a very exciting company in Noom because of the mission that they are serving.
Hmm. Tadi menurut gue I think that's clear that you found the person first gitu kayak which is DK. Terus kayak what made you choose wellness gitu. Karena kan dulu misalnya kayak lo kerja di e-commerce, right? Tadi gue mikir kayak something closer to that. Kayak wellness and Dito. This is interesting. Maybe there is some part of you that I don't know yet.
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons.
Yeah.
I think at first I would not say like I'm like 100% mission driven in this gitu kan. I see that there's like also like a gap in the space gitu, in this opportunity that I can kayak pragmatically pursue.
Yeah.
But I feel very strongly attached to the kayak wellness's mission to help people live better because of my own condition gitu. I came from a family line yang everyone is affected by chronic diseases one way or another.
Oh, okay.
Even I'm someone with a pre-diabetic constitution.
Hmm.
Um, and there was a couple of times in my life that I went through depression. Jadi kayak wellness is just not like a very foreign concept for me.
Hmm.
I can really relate to the mission of kayak enabling people to live their best kayak day gitu because they've done something well for their mind, body, and soul.
Hmm. Okay. Then what's the plan for Circa that you can share with us?
You mean business plan or kayak
Yeah.
more?
It's more like kayak as potential customers, right? Atau misalnya orang-orang juga yang lagi, I feel that I wanna lose weight because maybe I wanna be healthier, including myself, right? Kayak apa nih kira-kira heads up yang bisa lo kasih ke para calon customers on what they can expect from Circa moving forward?
Yeah, I think Circa is there to help you build a habit that works for your life. Jadi
Got it.
instead of creating a plan that forces you to go through a regime of do's and don'ts, we instead try to approach it by helping you commit to one or two habits that you want to develop over the coming 1 or 2 weeks. Now the use case is for food because 80% of I guess like wellness is food related. We want to start with that and deepen gitu ya instead of expand out to become kayak all wellness gitu. Jadi maksudnya deepen tuh di sini we wanna not only serve wellness goals, we wanna serve kayak people with more acute conditions and kayak heal these people through food gitu loh.
Totally. That's a really good start. Karena kayak sadar nggak sadar bahwa food like affects a lot. I think from like the health standpoint itu kayak udah non-arguable. Tapi even for me psychologically food juga memberikan banyak efek gitu ya. Dan maksudnya kayak I think I've read dan mungkin belum banyak yang dalam gitu. Tapi kayak even kayak apa yang kita makan bisa mempengaruhi mood kita hari itu. Gitu.
I guess like the technical application we're focusing on food ya bro. Tapi I think what's interesting about Circa is like at the core of the apa namanya technology ya. Tapi kayak principles and guiding people eating better.
Yeah.
We apply behavior change techniques.
Yes.
Gitu. And that application is wide gitu. You can heal addiction even kayak with this. You can heal kayak smokers addiction with misalnya kayak rokok.
Yeah.
The same principles. So take a look at the 10 years vision of Circa. It's gonna be about applying this behavior change techniques for multiple health issues.
Wow. That's super, super exciting though. And saying that not because you're my friend, but I personally believe that a lot of things yang bikin kita struggle is because we cannot stick with like a healthy habit. Because mungkin kadang-kadang kayak itu klise banget, or it's just kayak, oh yeah, I know, it just doesn't work for me, right? Tapi maybe it's because we don't stick long enough for the habit that helps us to have like a better life, right? So I think if there is like a system or an app or like a product that helps us to do that, wow, I'm super excited myself.
Yeah, we'll see. Ininya, finger crossed.
Yes. Last but not least, though, final question. Ini question yang selalu gue tanyain ke setiap guest gue gitu.
Yeah.
What's your most profound lesson from the first 5 years of your career?
I think there's 4 sih for me.
Oh,
yang pertama,
okay, great.
You just being kayak mission driven in anything you do gitu kayak, because in the end gitu kayak if you have a clarity in why you're doing what you're doing, easier for you to kayak plan kayak multiple approaches, right? Because you can see the end goal kayak achieving the same. Yang kedua itu juga lu jadi lebih resilient gitu ya kayak di masa sulit. And it goes back to kayak ini sih. I guess nothing is unattainable gitu. It's just that what's the cost that you wanna incur to getting what you want gitu kan. Jadi kayak I feel like you have to be very purposeful gitu and be very selective in kayak the missions and the things that you want to pursue. Gitu. Kedua itu you just gotta plan out your life gitu ya, even when the future is foggy at best. You gotta think about why you're doing kayak what you're doing kayak next month gitu atau even tomorrow. How does that kayak affect what you're gonna be doing 6 months from now, 3 years from now gitu kan. You can always kayak deliberate gitu kayak whether this is the most optimum course of action to do at this point atau enggak gitu loh. Yang ketiga itu menurut gua ini ya kayak itu kan tadi yang kedua, pertama tuh buat diri lo ya. Kalau misalnya buat whoever you work for gitu atau work with, menurut gue kayak contribute sih. No matter kayak how small gitu ya. It matters soalnya kayak when you try to do something, even though kayak maybe you're the youngest gitu, you're the most junior and you're the most foolish gitu. That's just that energy gitu kayak it's just gonna elevate the team dynamic gitu soalnya. Terus kayak menurut gue yang terakhir itu tuh ini sih, always stay foolish ya, tapi always have a perspective at the same time. Jadi kayak lo kayak selalu kayak punya jadi-jadi gitu loh, selalu punya kayak asumsi tentang sesuatu, tapi kayak lo nggak boleh stuck sama si opini itu gitu loh.
I see. Strong opinion, weakly held, right?
Yeah, strong opinions tapi weakly held, loosely held gitu.
Yeah, wow, that's great though. If I can summarize, be mission driven. Kayak have a plan, then inject positive energy and strong opinion, loosely held.
Yeah. I think this can be applied to anyone sih, by the way.
I think so. And I think kayak itu adalah mungkin kayak basic stuff, but I think gue bisa bilang orang-orang high performer yang gue temui itu melakukan hal-hal itu gitu. In one way or the other.
Yeah, I see.
Cool. Thank you so much, Toh, for your time.
Yeah, it was nice talking to you.
Yes. Best of luck for Circa and for life in general.
You too, man. Talk to you soon.
Yep, bye-bye.
Thank you banget ya udah dengerin episode kita kali ini. Kalau lo suka sama konten ini dan merasa kalau lebih banyak orang perlu mendengarnya, please share this to your network. Karena itu akan membantu mereka untuk menemukan konten ini dan mentransformasi hidup mereka. Jangan lupa juga untuk follow kita di Instagram, karena setiap harinya kita akan post bite-sized content untuk merefresh apa yang teman-teman sudah pelajari di podcast ini. Check out our Instagram @followyourflow.id. Terakhir, ada free course di website kita, yaitu tentang setting up your minimum viable priority, di mana lo bisa memahami prioritas hidup lo dan cara yang lebih konkret untuk mencapainya. Yuk, dapatkan akses di course-nya dengan check out our website di www.followyourflow.id.